Okay, welcome back to Eco 701. Then we move on to lecture 03. Okay, so let's start off with the PowerPoint slides. Okay, now we really move on to your research proposal. Okay, again, please go through the lecture speech notes, and then for this video, I will only provide the key summaries. Okay, so I think this is an important slide. Slide number 3, you need to know what you want to research, why you want to conduct the research. This is just an example. You want to fill a research gap. For instance, the study has never been done by anyone, let's say locally. How do you want to conduct the research? So for instance, I want to do some descriptive statistical analysis. I want to do some econometric analysis. What do we need to do the research? It means the resource needs, okay? Data, computer literacy, good reading and writing skills, and of course time. Whether you can really conduct the research, in other words, are there any possible limitations? Okay, then just be honest. If there are limitations, then just mention it in your research proposal or your actual research essay. And then in your lecture notes, lecture speech notes 03, I provide you an example, okay? So this is an example. Let's say I want to investigate youth unemployment in South Africa. Why do you want to conduct these studies? Because we know youth unemployment is quite a serious problem. So youth unemployment, both rate and number have been persistently high in the country, yet the existing, let's say, local empirical studies on youth unemployment are quite outdated. So you want to conduct an updated studies, okay, to fill the existing research gap. How you will conduct statistical and econometric analysis on the youth cohort. Let's say you define those aged 15 to 34 as youth, and then you want to analyze the stats as a quarterly labor force survey. And then you can derive some empirical findings on what's going on with youth unemployment over the years, let's say in the last 20 years, and then the profile, who are they in terms of gender, race, province, education, and so forth. The resource needs. What do you need to conduct the research? Obviously, you must download the Stats SA labor survey data. Remember the Data First website in the last lecture. Starter software. Have you installed Starter on your laptop? You need computer literacy, which means the knowledge you learn from the bootcamp, the 3-day starter session. And obviously, you must have some decent knowledge of Microsoft Word and Excel, good reading, writing, data analysis skills. The reading and writing skills coming up soon for a forthcoming lecture, as well as time. Remember the time management suggestion in the very first lecture. What are the limitations? Yes, in this research, there are some limitations because this is actually a well-known truth. Okay. The Stats SA labor survey data before 1995 are of very shaky, actually poor quality. So the labor economists would only analyze the labor data starting from 1995. Okay. In other words, you would hardly see some studies that would use the 93 and 94 labor survey data. Okay, I can actually provide you the reasons. The reason is that for the 93 and 94 labor survey data in the sample, Stats SA actually excluded the people who live in the former homelands, which stands for the TBVC states. I wonder if you have heard of TBVC states. If not, if you are too young to have heard of TBVC states, just ask your parents and they're going to explain to you. Okay, and now we can go back to the actual PowerPoint slides. Okay. I don't think I need to go through that. Okay. Research proposal. This is the focus of the first term. This is the foundation of the building, actually. You need to have a solid research proposal before you can proceed to do the nice literature review essay in the next term, and then the actual research essay in the third and the fourth term, actually. So the research proposal is a map needed to undertake the research journey. And in fact, it is a document that outlines how you propose to undertake your research, which is the actual research paper that is not carried out yet. Okay. So in other words, this is like a project planning document that explains what you are going to do in the next, let's say, 6 or 7 months. Okay. And then right at the beginning, at this step, your research proposal, you need to at least read a certain number of readings, okay, to have some solid understanding, let's say preliminary understanding of the research topic. And then for the research proposal, you should have some pretty clear ideas on your research objectives, because if you have very fake research objectives, unclear research objectives in the proposal stage, then you are going to struggle when it comes to the actual literature review and your actual research long essay. Okay. I don't think I need to talk about the resources. Okay, I have mentioned it in the first few lectures, and this is the general format of the research proposal. Title page, abstract. I think for the research proposal, for the abstract, half a page would be enough. And then a bit of an introduction, setting the scene, the background, research question, research objectives. I will talk about the difference between general research objective and specific research objectives a bit later. And then a brief literature review. It doesn't need to be too long for the research proposal. But for the literature review, there are generally 3 subsessions. You can define key concepts. Remember, you can't define 100 key concepts. So just focus on the 2 or 3 most important key concepts. Theories, again, you can't review all the theories. Maybe for the proposal, maybe 1 or 2 most important or most well-known theories. And then some preliminary review of past empirical studies. You have to do a better job when it comes to the literature review essay during the second term. But I think for the research proposal, maybe plus or minus 3 or 5 past empirical studies review would be sufficient for the research proposal. And then just brief discussion on the methods and data. For the research proposal stage, I wouldn't expect you to fully know your method and data. Okay, so for this session, method and data, I wouldn't be too demanding. And then a work plan with a nice table just to say, oh, I'm going to do this and that in March. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z in April. And then May and June, I would work on my literature review essay. I will read 3 readings per night, and then I would make some summary notes and so forth. Or from July to September, I will analyze the stats SA data. Then October, I will write up the results and finalize my research long essay. Okay. I don't think I need to go through this slide, which is self-explanatory. Okay, and then I will just go through, I'm not going to go through every single bullet. Again, you must first read the lecture speech notes, okay, before you watch this video. The title, I think one important thing is that your title cannot be too long. I would suggest maybe 15 words maximum, okay. And then remember your research topic cannot be too broad, so you can see an example here. I want to narrow the focus. So maybe initially you know that, oh, I'm interested in pursuing a research topic in development economics. But remember, for development economics, there are lots of like sub-disciplines or sub-areas like inequality, poverty, migration, urban-rural dynamics, and so forth. So you narrow the focus, or under development economics, I want to look at poverty. But for poverty, there are 2 types of poverty, money metric poverty and non-money metric poverty. So you narrow the focus, you would conclude by saying, oh, I want to look at non-money metric poverty, maybe look at asset ownership, refuse removal, access to tap water, electricity in the dwelling, and then you want to do the analysis by province instead of by gender, by education, and then for the 10-year period from 2007 to 2017. You can't do a 100-year analysis, it will be too much. Actually, you will take 5 years to conclude the study. Abstract, maybe half a page would be enough for a proposal. When it comes to abstract, you have to, at the bottom of the abstract, you have to provide some keywords. If I go back to my example, the keywords would be poverty, non-money metric, South Africa. You can even add province. Remember from the previous slide, you want to look at non-money metric poverty by province. JEL classification, you can provide the codes actually. So when you have time, you can go through this document, JEL classification. I will just open it. Okay, so when people need to rely on the codes, then they would know, oh, your study relates to this area. So maybe you want to do a topic in public economics, then your JEL code would start with alphabet H actually. So when you have time, you can go through this document. So these are the codes under area H, public economics. So if your research essay is about tax evasion, then you have to put H26 as your JEL code at the bottom of the abstract. Okay, so when you have time, please go through these JEL classification code documents. And now I can go back to my PowerPoint slides. Okay. And then after the abstract, you have a session, let's say the intro or the background session, setting the scene. You have to explain why you are conducting this study. Okay, rationale, significance. Why do you think your study is important? So if I go back to my previous example on non-money metric poverty, so in my intro or the background session, I would say that since the advent of democracy, the government has been working hard to allocate resources or increase the fiscal spending on basic services delivery. Okay. So now you want to know what has been going on to the non-income welfare since the advent of democracy from 1994 or 1995. And so this is the rationale. I want to know the latest status of the non-money metric poverty or welfare of the South African population. And you think this study is important because it is important for the households or the household members to have access to the basic services like electricity, tap water. Okay, otherwise, how can they feel secure about themselves before they want to make an effort to look for work? And if there's no electricity in the dwelling, how can the kids study productively? Okay. In other words, in the intro or the background session, you have to prove that your research is worth doing. Okay, so you can look at the example on slide number 12, self-explanatory. And then the research question, and then if I go back to my previous example, my research question would be, remember the research question must end with question mark. So my research question would be, what has been happening to the South African non-money metric poverty by province from 2007 to 2017? Okay, end with question mark. Okay. So in other words, there's a discrepancy between what is known and what is needed to be known. So for the last few words, what is needed to be known, you need to find out the answers by analyzing, let's say, the Stats SA census data. Okay, and then slide number 14 is self-explanatory. Okay, so some of the questions are empirical. It means it involves data analysis, but other questions are non-empirical. In other words, it does not necessarily need data analysis. This is what I mentioned in the very first lecture, that not all the research topics or your research essays would involve data analysis. Okay, so don't try to run regressions for no sake just to want to pretend you are a good econometrician. If your research topic is highly qualitative, theoretical, it doesn't really need data analysis or econometric analysis, then don't run any regressions. And this is why I have a few examples in the folder. So this is an example. Charlie 2014. So look at his honors research topic. By the way, just look at my comments in the sticky note comments in the PDF file. Self-explanatory. You are going to learn a lot. So let's look at Miss Charlie's honors research topic. You can clearly see it is highly qualitative, theoretical. What is CPI and what does it measure? So look at the table of contents. I think she only has like 3 chapters. Introduction, Chapter 1. Chapter 2 is the literature review, mainly on the definitions and the theories. Okay, difference between CPI and maybe other indices like PPI. And then Chapter 3. Her Chapter 3 discussed the pros and cons of CPI. And then Chapter 4, conclusion. You can see her research topic does not require data analysis. So this is an example of non-empirical research. Purely literature review. And then if you look at the other example, 2017, Miss Tina Fransman, okay, she looks at multi-dimensional poverty index. You see the word index. So her research topic does involve data analysis. By the way, this is a master's level dissertation. So if you look at her table of contents, Chapter 1, usual stuff, intro. Chapter 2, literature review. She discussed the theories and so forth. And then she has Chapter 3, review of past empirical studies. So she has 2 literature review chapters. Chapter 2 on the definition of concepts and theories. And Chapter 3, mainly on review of past empirical studies. And then you can see her next chapter discuss methods and data. Then Chapter 5, empirical analysis. Keep in mind, I repeat, her topic involves data analysis. Then the conclusion. Okay, so I think let's first take a short break before we continue with the summary lecture.